All right, ready to dive deep.
Always.
Today, it's all about Leaders Eat Last, this awesome book by Simon Sinek.
Oh yeah, the start with why guy.
Exactly. But this one goes way beyond that. It flips the whole leadership script.
I've heard good things. What's the main takeaway?
Well, it's about why some teams totally rock, while others, even with the same talent, just flounder.
The age-old question. What's the secret sauce?
Sinek says it all boils down to, get this, safety. Feeling safe.
Safe, like physically safe.
Kinda, but it's
Yeah.
deeper than that. He starts the book with this crazy story about an A-10 pilot in Afghanistan, call sign Johnny Bravo.
Sounds intense.
This guy puts himself right in the line of fire, not for glory or anything, but to protect the troops on the ground.
Wow, talk about putting others first.
It's a powerful image of what real leadership looks like, not just barking orders from some cushy headquarters.
So it's about putting your team's well-being above your own.
Exactly. And Sinek doesn't just tell stories. He dives into the science behind it, too. Biology, anthropology, the whole shebang.
Oh, so he connects this safety thing to, like, our primal instincts.
Yeah. He calls it the circle of safety, and when it's there, amazing things happen.
Okay, color me intrigued. But how does this play out in the real world? Not all of us are leading soldiers into battle.
Right. That's what I thought, too. But Sinek uses examples from all sorts of companies.
Really? Like what?
Well, there's this one, Hasten Sandiaker. They make manufacturing equipment, and they decided to treat their factory workers with the same respect as their office staff.
Interesting. So no more us versus them mentality.
Exactly. And guess what?
What happened?
Morale and productivity went through the roof.
So it's not about being soft or anything.
Nope. It's about recognizing that when people feel safe and valued, they're more likely to collaborate, innovate, and go the extra mile.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection, but he also talks about all this brain chemistry stuff, right?
Yeah.
Dopamine, serotonin, all that.
Yeah, does it get too technical?
I'm kind of a science nerd, so I'm curious, but I can see how it might scare some people off.
No, he keeps it super accessible. He explains how those chemicals drive our behavior at work and why some leadership styles, even well-intentioned ones, can backfire.
So it's not just about being a nice boss. There's more to it than that.
Way more. He compares two really famous CEOs, Jack Welch, the Neutron Jag guy from GE, and Costco's James Sinegal, who's known for treating his employees incredibly well.
I see where this is going. Classic good leader versus bad leader example.
It's a stark contrast. Welch was all about shareholder value above everything else, while Sinegal prioritized his people. And the results speak for themselves.
Meaning?
Costco has thrived with loyal employees and happy customers, while GE has, well, had its ups and downs.
That's quite the comparison. So which leadership style do you think resonates more with people today?
Good question. Makes you think, what kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of workplace do you want to be a part of?
Deep stuff. But I'm guessing there's more to the book than just leadership styles.
Oh, yeah. He goes there. Like, remember the Milgram experiment?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
That crazy study where they convinced regular people to shock others just because some guy in a lab coat told them to.
Oh, yeah, now I remember. Pretty disturbing stuff.
It shows how easily we can get caught up in a system and do things we never thought we would.
And lose sight of our own moral compass in the process. Yikes. So is Sinek saying this is what happens when there's any circle of safety?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He connects it to the dangers of blind obedience and how we can get so disconnected from our values.
He makes you think, right? Are we all capable of that kind of blind obedience?
It's a sobering thought for sure. But honestly, with all the distractions these days, social media, the pressure to hustle,
Right, like who even has time for deep connections anymore?
can we even create those kinds of bonds that Sinek talks about?
He addresses that head on. He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges of our hyper-connected world.
So what's the solution?
Yeah.
How do we build trust when everyone's glued to their phones?
He offers some really practical advice on how to build genuine relationships and a sense of belonging, even in this digital age.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. This circle of safety thing, it's not just some feel-good theory. It's backed by science, history, real-world examples.
Sounds like a real page-turner. I'm adding it to my reading list.
You won't regret it. It's one of those books that can totally change how you think about leadership, teamwork, and what it means to build a successful and fulfilling life.
Sign me up.
And, he tells this incredible story about the Taj Hotel during the Mumbai attacks, where the staff risked their lives to protect guests.
Wait, don't spoil it. I want to experience that one firsthand.
Lips are sealed. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Those stories, those moments of courage and selflessness, that's what makes this book so captivating.
That Taj Hotel story, it's just, wow, really makes you think about what matters most.
Right. Those moments of extreme pressure, they reveal a lot about human nature.
Absolutely. Both the good and the bad. And Sinek doesn't shy away from the dark side either.
Yeah, he talks about how abstraction can lead to some pretty messed up things.
Abstraction, like what does he mean by that?
It's when we start seeing people as numbers or resources, not as human beings.
Ah, I see. Like at those corporate layoffs where they talk about headcount reduction?
Exactly. He uses the example of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, that massive environmental
Oh,
disaster.
yeah, wasn't that a BP thing?
He argues it wasn't just a technical failure, but a leadership failure. Cutting cost became more important than people's safety.
Because they lost sight of the human cost.
Exactly. And then there's the Milgram experiment. It's terrifying how easily we can be manipulated.
Wait, remind me about that one again. It was about.
Obedience to authority. They got regular people to, shock others just because a guy in a lab coat told them to.
Oh, right, because they figured the authority figure knew what they were doing. Didn't some people think they were actually hurting those other people?
It's a chilling example of how we can abandon our own moral compass when we feel pressure to conform.
And lose sight of the consequences. So how do we avoid falling into those traps? Especially in today's world where everything's so fast-paced and competitive.
He talks about the importance of staying connected to our values, even when it's tough.
Easier said than done, right? I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information, social media, work demands.
It's true. And he doesn't downplay those challenges. But he offers some really practical advice on how to combat distractions and build strong relationships, even in this crazy digital age.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the secret?
Well, he emphasizes face-to-face interaction, having real conversations, sharing meals together.
So basically putting down the phone and actually connecting with people.
Exactly. Being present, listening deeply, understanding different perspectives. It's about remembering that we're dealing with human beings, not just avatars or email addresses.
It sounds so simple, but it's easy to forget in the daily grind. We get caught up in tasks and deadlines, and we lose sight of the human element.
He also talks about the power of shared experiences, going through challenges together.
Like team building exercises, I've always been kind of skeptical of those.
Think about it when you work on a tough project with a team. Those late nights, brainstorming sessions, moments of frustration and triumph.
Oh, I get it. It's
Yeah.
about building that shared history, that feeling of camaraderie.
Exactly. It's like forging a bond through fire. You come out stronger on the other side.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not just about avoiding conflict or pretending everything's perfect.
It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to be themselves, take risks, disagree, and support each other through thick and thin.
That reminds me, didn't he tell a story about a company that did something radical during a recession?
Barry Wemler. Oh yeah, instead of layoffs, they implemented this mandatory furlough program. Everyone, from the CEO down, had to take unpaid time off.
Wait, everyone had to take a pay cut. That's wild.
Right. But the CEO, Bob Chapman, believed it was better for everyone to share the burden than for some to lose their jobs entirely.
Wow. I can't imagine many CEOs being that selfless.
And get this, instead of resentment and fear, people started volunteering to cover for each other, trading shifts.
So it actually strengthened their bond as a team.
It's a testament to the culture of trust and shared sacrifice that Chapman had built. He understood that putting his people first, even when it was hard, was the right thing to do.
It's a powerful example of how leading with empathy can create amazing results, even in tough times.
He also talks about the importance of patience in building trust. There's this concept he calls the rule of 7 days and 7 years.
7 days and 7 years, what's that all about?
It's about how long it takes to really get to know someone and build that deep sense of trust. You can't force it or rush it.
That's a good reminder. We live in a world of instant gratification, but relationships take time and effort.
He even suggests that technology, while it connects us in some ways, can also hinder deep connections.
Because it's so easy to hide behind screens and present a perfect version of ourselves.
Exactly. True connection requires vulnerability and authenticity. It's about letting people see the real you, flaws and all.
It's like that saying, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
And that's what Leaders Eat Last is all about, creating an environment where people feel safe, valued, and inspired to be their best.
So it's not just about being a good boss, it's about being a good human.
Exactly. And that's something we can all strive for, no matter what our role is. It's funny, we keep talking about feeling safe at work, But it's not like we're worried about, like, bears attacking us at our desks.
Right. So what does safety really mean in the context of, a modern workplace?
That's where Sinek gets really deep. He ties it back to our biology.
My biology.
Yeah, all those feel-good chemicals in our brains. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin.
Ah, the brain chemistry stuff. So when we feel safe, those chemicals are flowing.
Exactly. And when we feel stressed or threatened, they take a nosedive.
Makes sense. But remind me, what do those chemicals actually do?
Well, dopamine is all about motivation and reward. It gives us that drive to achieve goals.
Okay, dopamine, motivation, got it. What about serotonin?
Serotonin is linked to feeling valued and respected. Like, I belong here, my contributions matter.
Interesting. And oxytocin. That's the.
The cuddle hormone. It's all about trust and bonding, feeling connected to others.
So when we're in that fight or flight mode, stressed out, constantly competing,
Those chemicals get depleted. And that's when things start to unravel.
people become less collaborative, more suspicious of each other, the circle of safety breaks down.
Exactly. He talks about how this plays out in different industries, like finance, where it's all about profits and cutthroat competition.
A recipe for burnout and bad decisions, right?
He uses the example of the 2008 financial crisis, where this relentless pursuit of profit at the expense of everything else.
Oh,
Well, it led to some pretty disastrous consequences.
these people were so focused on the bottom line that they forgot about the human impact.
And that's where abstraction comes in.
Right, we talked about that earlier, seeing people as numbers instead of human beings.
It's easier to justify unethical behavior when you're not thinking about the real people affected by your decisions.
Sobering stuff. Okay, so we know what not to do, but what can leaders actually do to create this circle of safety?
It's not about some grand, sweeping gesture. It starts with small, everyday actions.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Really listening to your team, acknowledging their contributions, celebrating successes together, being transparent about challenges.
So basically, being a decent human being.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's about being intentional about creating a culture of trust and respect. He also talks about the importance of vulnerability.
Vulnerable leaders. That sounds counterintuitive.
Right. But admitting when you don't have all the answers, being willing to ask for help, it shows your team that you're human.
And that makes them feel safer to do the same.
Exactly. It builds trust and encourages people to take risks, knowing they won't be punished for making mistakes.
He tells that story about the submarine captain, right? The one who totally changed the performance of his crew by empowering them.
But yeah, he gave them more autonomy, encouraged them to speak up, and the results were incredible.
So it's not about micromanaging or having all the answers. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to contribute their best ideas.
Which brings us back to that question we asked earlier. How do we apply these ideas if we're not in a leadership position?
Right. Not all of us are CEOs or submarine captains.
But here's the thing. You don't need a fancy title to make a difference.
So what can we do?
Start by fostering trust and connection in your own sphere of influence. Be the person who listens without judgment, who offers support and encouragement.
Be the change you want to see, right?
Exactly. Those small acts of kindness and generosity, they can have a ripple effect. They create a more positive environment for everyone.
And that's what Leaders Eat Last is all about, right? Creating a world where everyone feels valued, respected, and inspired to be their best.
It's not just a leadership book, it's a guide to being a better human. And if you ask me, that's something we could all use a little more of these days.
Absolutely. It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish it.
So dive in and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your takeaways.